Hey, good morning. It's Saturday, May the 10th, the 111th day of Donald Trump's second presidency. And here's where we stand. The trade war Trump seemed to think he could easily win against China is not playing out that way, as the president freelances public concessions while officials from his administration are meeting in Geneva with their Chinese counterparts who are not making any public concessions at all. Until about 2 hours ago, two of America's nuclear-armed allies, India and Pakistan, were on the knife's edge of a hot war. Both countries have now confirmed that they're agreeing to a full ceasefire, first announced by President Trump on his social media site. And federal officials arrested the mayor of a major American city as he questioned the legality of an immigration detention center going up in his town. We'll talk about all of this morning, but I want to start this hour with what Donald Trump is trying to sell the American people this second term. The president has brought up the hardship that Americans will face multiple times now, as the chaotic rollout of his tariffs have proven both damaging to the American economy and wildly unpopular among the American people. Like his recent remark that American children might have 2 dolls instead of 30 this Christmas. Now, he's perhaps using dolls as an example here because it sounds frivolous and unimportant in the grand scheme of things. But make no mistake, what the president is trying to sell here has nothing to do with dolls and everything to do with the concept of austerity. And that is not what he campaigned on. For ordinary American families who work hard for every penny, reducing financial hardship to a question of dolls is deeply offensive. It's a dismissal of the daily struggle to make ends meet in a country where the cost of living keeps outpacing wages. His sweeping tariffs could cost the average household $3,800 a year, hitting working and middle-class Americans the hardest, according to a report from Yale. When Trump talks about dolls, what he's really saying is get ready for hard times, prepare for scarcity, prepare for prices to spike. You probably won't be able to afford the life that you currently live. And why? For what? To bankroll his tariff and tax cuts for the rich is why. Trump, a man who surrounds himself with gold-plated everything, is trivializing what amounts to a demand for real sacrifice from working and middle-class Americans. Make no mistake, this is not about dolls or pencils or strollers. It's about deliberately making life harder for millions of families under the false pretense that doing so is necessary for some greater good. But there is no greater good unless you're pretty rich. And even then, it's not clear that tanking the global economy is beneficial, because Donald Trump's tariffs don't just take a wrecking ball to Main Street America. They put the U.S. dollar's global dominance at serious risk of collapse. That's according to the Harvard economist Ken Rogoff, who told Axios, quote, Trump is a catalyst and an accelerant. The rest of the world was already seeking more freedom from the dollar, and this just lit a fire under it, end quote. America does not need austerity right now for any reason. We certainly don't need austerity so that the ultra-wealthy can score another $5 trillion in tax cuts. We don't need austerity so Trump can pass a cruel budget that guts Medicaid and dismantles the social safety net, all to fund $5 trillion in tax cuts. Remember, after 9/11, President George W. Bush told Americans that the most patriotic thing they could do was spend to keep the economy moving. That was a Republican president encouraging consumer confidence and spending, not austerity. And that was a moment of real national crisis, because George Bush understood what every president except this president does, that in America, consumer spending drives economic recovery. But now we got a Republican president who himself caused the instability from which we would actually need to recover. And he's asking ordinary, non-rich working Americans to tighten their belts to fix it. Let's be clear. Austerity is a real thing that has historically, in some very specific instances, been used successfully. But it's certainly not a growth strategy, which is what Donald Trump actually campaigned on. Austerity is the policy of pulling back 2 dolls instead of 30, 5 pencils instead of 250, though I've never known anyone who wasn't an architect who had 250 pencils. And like tariffs, austerity only makes sense in certain specific circumstances. For instance, during a true emergency like a war or a natural disaster. Austerity asks people to sacrifice for the greater good. But what is the greater good here? To what true national emergency are we responding other than the one that Donald Trump is manufacturing through sweeping tariffs that raise prices on everything from groceries to school supplies? This is, in fact, austerity without justification, austerity with no purpose. It's austerity by design to make sure that the wealthy remain untouched while the rest of the country is told to make do. Because let's be honest, Trump never intended for the wealthy to share in this so-called sacrifice. When Trump says your kids only need $2, he's not saying his grandkids will get 2 gifts this holiday season. He's not telling billionaire CEOs they should give up their private jets and fly commercial or sell their yachts and board a Carnival cruise. He's telling you, the teacher, the truck driver, the retiree, the single mom, the small business owner, he's telling you your life needs to get economically smaller so his billionaire buddies' tax bills can get smaller. And while he's at it, his foot soldiers in Congress are busy pushing cuts to Medicaid, the very lifeline that families depend on when times get tough. So he manufactures this crisis, he imposes austerity, and then he takes away the very tools that Americans need to survive it. This is a betrayal of trust, not just of his base, but of all hardworking Americans, and a full-blown assault on America's working and middle class. You know, the 99% who don't have Mar-a-Lago and Trump Towers to fall back on. This is not economic policy. It's a wealth protection racket dressed up as fiscal responsibility. Even the conservative Wall Street Journal sees right through it, writing, quote, "In Mr. Trump's America, you get $2 only. You pay more, and you be sure to thank the man in the handmade silk tie on the way out." Presidents succeed by promising a chicken in every pot and then delivering 2 or 3. Up until last week, I would have said that was Mr. Trump's shtick. Now I'm not so sure. Mr. Trump has no standing to push austerity. His whole life has been a tribute to gilded, gaudy excess. Every room he enters is bedazzled and bedecked. He puts his name on anything he thinks he can sell: sneakers, watches, steaks, golf balls. Nobody needs any of it. Most of us make budgeting decisions for our businesses and families that have real-world consequences. We can decide what we need and don't need. Thank you very much. End quote. That was the Wall Street Journal. Trump ran in 2016 promising to strengthen the economy, to uplift the forgotten man and women. But here we are in 2025, and he's telling these same people to accept less, spend less, expect less, while pretending it's good for their own good. As our good friend Molly John Fast wondered, so capitalism is bad now? This is not a natural downturn in the economy. This is not a war economy. This is not the result of some external disaster. It's the fallout from one man's economic choices and his refusal to course correct. Austerity is for emergencies. This is economic gaslighting. So no, Donald Trump, we're not buying the idea that Americans need to give up the things that keep daily life running just because you lit the house on fire and now want credit for handing us a water bucket.